I'd like to show you how to marzipan a cake that's suitable for sugar pasting. So I've got my cake here, it's a rich fruit cake, and I'm going to apply the sugar paste. Now first of all I need to assess the cake. Is the cake at a level? So I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to see. Now I can do this in different ways. I can use a spirit level, I can get down and turn it to see if it's on a level, but you need to rise at that same level as the cake, or you can put the spirit level on your phone and place it on there. I can see this cake needs to be just trimmed off to the one side, this side. So without putting your hands, my hands are way out the way, I'm just going to trim it off. So when you bake a cake, you aim to have a nice flat cake, but sometimes you just need to make it even better. That's fine. So it just needed a few crumbs taken off. Now the equipment I've got here is a rolling pin, a palette knife, pastry brush, icing sugar, marzipan and apricot jam. So well, first of all I want to get rid of all my crumbs. So now I've got a nice level cake. There we go. So my marzipan is here. Now the cake itself needs to be level, as I said, but if I've got a few gaps around the bottom, I'm not too worried at all. I'm just going to have a look, see if I've got any gaps at the top. So sometimes when you take the paper off, greaseproof paper off your cake, it does pull away at a few crumbs, and all you need to do is just fill in the odd gap. But usually, you know, it can take the odd currant missing. I'll just take that in there. So I'm not going to be too fussy about it because the marzipan's going to cover it. I'm going to marzipan this cake with the bottom of the cake on the top. So that's the top of the cake, and that's going to be turned over, and this is the bottom of the cake, and I'm going to marzipan the bottom. Always keep your marzipan covered up until you come to use it. Now, as I say, I've got a bit of a gap going around here, so I'm going to show you how to cover that up. But what I'm not going to do is start pushing in any bits of marzipan, because one, they might fall out, two, it's quite time consuming. So I'm going to marzipan it, and as I take the marzipan over, then push any marzipan into the gaps. It's just perhaps a little bit different way than you would imagine. Always roll out your marzipan on your icing sugar. And just like you do with sugar paste, roll your marzipan and turn it. Roll your marzipan and turn. And this way, it's going to be very even. It's going to be a good thickness. And if you're worried about the shape, just push it into shape and then continue. So you can see I've got still icing sugar underneath the marzipan, and because I'm turning it every now and again, I can check that it's not sticking to the table. Now you do need quite a thick covering of marzipan on your cake. If you think, oh, I'm not too keen on marzipan, I'll cut the amount of marzipan down, then that'll be okay, but then you'll need a thicker piece of sugar paste because the overall finish of your cake will be a little bit different. So roll it in front and turn, in front and turn, and that's why I don't need a lot of icing sugar. Obviously, the more icing sugar I put on this, it'll change the consistency of my marzipan. I'm going to check to see if it's the right size. Now, yes, you can use a ruler, but I'm just going to measure it using my rolling pin. Yeah, that's not too bad at all. Perhaps just a fraction more. Yep. Okay. What I need next is I need to just pause. I need to warm up my apricot jam, and I need the apricot jam so it's boiling, so it's bubbling, not just around the egg but in the centre as well. Okay, so I've boiled my apricot jam and it's boiling all over, and I'm just boiled it just in readiness to cover the cake. What I wouldn't do is let the jam cool down before I use it. I want the boiling of the jam to kill all the spores. So I'm going to brush the top of the cake, brush the side, all the way around, making sure I haven't missed any. But you can see I'm not putting lots of jam on it, it's only a thin covering. You can actually apply it with your palette knife. Or if you think, oh, I've got too much on there, you could then scrape some off. I'm just moving my cake away from the jam, lifting up my marzipan and place it on the cake. I'm flattening just nice and gently because marzipan can be soft and you can damage it. I'm just gently flattening it with my hand. Then when you cover a cake in marzipan, very similar to when you sugar pasting a round cake, you work from the top coming down. Nowhere do you pull the marzipan down or it will rip. So I'm just easing it in as it goes. If it forms a fold, then I'm just opening up that fold. I don't want any folds in the marzipan when I've completed. Take your time on this bit because it's very easy to rip the marzipan. It's very easy to cause a fold. What I wouldn't do is do one side and then do another. You have to work around and work down the cake. Now this cake is going to be used to sugar paste, so I'm not too concerned about the odd bit of a crumb on my marzipan because that crumb won't show through the sugar paste. So just gently bringing it down, just working it in, bringing out any folds that you might have. Okay, so that's all the way down to the bottom. What I now need to do is fill up that gap that I had around the bottom of the cake, and I'm going to use my finger for this, and I'm going to push in the marzipan. Now, I'm also going to move it onto some icing sugar because I don't want it to stick, and push it in. So I'm using my finger to push in a small amount of marzipan. If I did this side, you'd be able to see, into the bottom of the cake and turn it. Now this is a quicker and easier way, and especially if you've got lots of cakes to do, of filling in that bottom edge. But each time you do it, turn the cake. Doing it this method will leave a little bit of a ridge around the bottom of the cake, but you won't see it when it's sugar pasted. Okay, so I've now pushed it in to the cake. It's not going all the way up the side, it's only a little bit at the bottom. Using your palette knife, I'm going to do the furthest side away from me. I'm putting the palette knife against the cake and it's coming down. Down. Turning my cake. And I think you see the pattern here. I keep my cake and the marzipan when I'm rolling it out, moving it at all times, so making sure that it's not stuck to the cake. The cake's not stuck to the table. So as I do it, I'm putting it against the marzipan, the cake, putting the marzipan off at the bottom, against the marzipan cake, and cutting it off at the bottom. And it's always better to do it straight down. If you start doing this, what will happen, you'll cut away too much of the marzipan, and the bottom of the cake will go in. So that should give me a nice base. I'm just going to go over just once more, just to make sure. And again, the palette knife is against the cake as I cook down. I want that marzipan all nice and smooth. I don't want any of the marzipan sticking out, or it will go through to the sugar paste. Okay, so you can see there I've got a little bit of a crumb, but I'm not too worried about the crumb. So at the moment I've got a nice flat top, nice straight sides. If you do end up cutting too much off, because I know it's like when you're first starting, you might cut a little bit too much off, then push a little bit of marzipan in and cut it off again, so don't panic. Right, so what I need to do, as you can see, I'm smoothing down the sides, smoothing down the top. As yet, I'm not touching this edge at all. I can use a smoother. Now the problem with the smoother is people tend to rub a little bit too hard, and you've got to remember you don't want to disfigure this marzipan, you want it to carry on looking quite good. But you can just very, very gently smooth the top, and then holding the the smooth straight and not at an angle. So if it's straight, you should be able to straighten off the sides as well. It probably won't need much at all. The worst thing you can do when you're marzipaning a cake is rub at it round the edge. So I've seen people rub at it, and then you'll make this a lot too rounded. So what you need to do is smooth it round, and then very gently, just take that smoother around the edge. Another way of doing this is this part of your hand forms a perfect edge to this cake, so you can rub around it using your hand. Either way works, but just spend a few minutes of it gently checking the cake, and then when you think that looks okay, you can just transfer it onto a board. I just put some greaseproof paper on because it's not stopping on this board. It's going to be transferred onto a sugar paste board. So with your palette knife, take your palette knife, put your hand underneath, lift it up and place it on the board, and then take the palette knife away. Just double checking the bottom. And this is the crease I was talking about. Can you see the crease? I'm not too worried about that. It's done its job. It's filled in the bottom of that cake, so I'll get nice flat sides, nothing sticking out. So when I sugar paste it, that'll all be covered. Okay. Thank you.